this slide, moving infrastructure to the cloud, we asked this in two separate questions. Essentially, if you're thinking about moving to the cloud or have moved to the cloud, what's the time frame for live streaming? What's the time frame for on demand? As you can see, we have a fairly significant number of people who say they've already moved. And then we have another group of people who say they aren't planning to move. Let me talk to that one briefly. And again, this is raw analysis. What we find in this slide, as I've done initial analysis, is there are particular groups, whether they're not-for-profits who have commented that they're too small, or if they're government organizations who feel like their content is for internal use as opposed to external use. So there are reasons that companies have chosen not to move to the cloud, but interestingly, the reasons aren't things like cost or flexibility. In fact, we'll talk to that a little bit later. Rob, what's your take on sort of the whole, if we look at this, 3/4 of the people either have moved to the cloud or are looking to move to the cloud at a later date?
Yeah, this is in line with what we're seeing in the industry and things like RFPs. I think it's neat to call out that you can see that a larger percentage of VOD providers have already moved to the cloud than live streaming providers, and I think that's a callback to a point that we made previously, where historically it's been easier to do VOD and file-based content in the cloud than it has been live. But you can see from the other segments of that, live pie, that just as many people are, in the active planning stages to move, or are looking for information about, how to move their live operations to the cloud. That no plans to move quarter of the pie is more or less identical for both of those pies.
It really is, and that sort of goes back to what we talked about before with live streaming. Things like enterprise events and live streaming moving up in parity with VOD. This reiterates that particular point, which it seems like companies are getting more comfortable embracing the idea of doing live, but they're afraid from a scaling standpoint that they may not be able to do that with what they have in on-premise equipment.
Yep.
Hence the look to move to the cloud equally for live streaming as you've done in the past for on-demand content.